All right. Thank you, Ken.
Well, today, House impeachment managers are expected to officially deliver the article of impeachment to the Senate. It kicks off a countdown until senators will decide if former President Donald Trump will have any future in politics.
Yeah, joining us live now to discuss that is Dr. Jack Miller, a professor of political science at Portland State University. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. So, aside from delivering the articles, should we expect anything else from the Senate today?
Oh, well, the Senate has already agreed that they're going to give both sides 2 weeks to come up with briefs. So the trial itself won't begin for 2 more weeks. And this is not what happened in the impeachment last time, but each removal trial is essentially up to the Senate to decide how to organize and how to run. And in this case, the minority and majority leaders have agreed to a 2-week pre-trial period.
We saw some lawmakers making the rounds on Sunday shows yesterday over the weekend, and a growing number of Republican senators starting to kind of make this case that they oppose the proceedings. What are some of the different arguments that they have been giving for that?
Well, some of them believe that since Donald Trump is already out of office, that the Constitution doesn't allow removal, and others are, unsure about that. This has never been tested. Impeachment trials don't happen very often, and so there's not a lot of precedent, and the Supreme Court has never ruled on it. So some Republicans are saying it's moot and we can't even do it. It's unconstitutional. Though the Constitution allows the Senate itself to decide, on this particular power, and so they are within their rights as senators to vote that this is an unconstitutional move, just as any senator is also within their rights to say, no, this is a constitutional move, and I'm going to vote to ban Donald Trump from holding further office.
Are those Republicans, what do you think they're more concerned about? Maybe future primaries, future elections where Trump's base remembers that they voted to impeach him?
I would say that the vast majority of Republican senators are making a political calculation rather than some kind of principled stand. There are a handful who are saying this is a vote of conscience, this has nothing to do with party politics, but most are, whatever they're saying, they're likely to be making political calculations about their future. And because the people who supported Donald Trump, they are Republican voters, but they may actually just be Donald Trump voters. There are senators whose both future in the Senate as well as their presidential hopes for 2024 can potentially hinge on these voters. And so for them, the question is going to be, how many people do we alienate with each move, and which move seems to be the better for my political future? And this is, this might seem particularly terrible at a time like this, but that's kind of politics as usual. The Constitution does leave the removal trial in the hands of elected officials rather than putting it in the hands of, say, the court system, which would be more impartial. The Constitution leaves it up to elected officials, and so we can imagine that the authors of the Constitution found it fine to have political calculations be part of this type of procedure, or they would have put it in the hands of some other body.
It's interesting, those political calculations, the discussion over the constitutionality of this kind of skirts the issue then of having to look at whether this was incitement of an insurrection by the President of the United States. So how exactly does the law define incitement? Are we going to see any argument over that actual issue?
Right. There are certainly senators who are going to look at the question not of, is this a constitutional move? And they'll say, of course it's a constitutional move, because if you allow somebody to just either their term of office to expire or to resign, they can essentially escape this constitutional punishment. So there are going to be senators who say that, but then who say, well, this was not incitement, this was free speech. And there are legal standards. The Supreme Court has ruled on the nature of incitement to lawless action. When you can't claim First Amendment protection is when you directly incite imminent lawless action. Now, if this were a regular criminal trial, the jurors would be instructed by the judge to determine whether or not the words of the person accused, in this case, President Trump, when he was president, were they equivalent to lawless action, or were they just words, and then the people who engaged in lawless action were essentially on their own? And that is, there are well-established legal doctrines there, but of course, jurors in any regular trial, and the senators are jurors now, will have to make that determination. So if you're a Republican senator who thinks it's okay to have an impeachment trial after the president has left office, you still can say, well, but this wasn't incitement. This was free speech, and the people who attacked the Capitol were acting on their own, and anybody who said anything to them prior bears no legal responsibility for that. And so that's a normal question in any kind of case that involves incitement.
Very interesting. Okay, Dr. Jack Miller with PSU, thanks for your insight this morning.
You're welcome anytime.
New on AM Extra, former White House spokesperson